allowing the use of their beautiful space for tonight's event. They have 3 lovely facilities available, so remember them for all of your future event needs. Visit them online at thewarrenplaceevents.com to view and book the facility for your event. My name is Jennifer Williams, and I am your host of the Public Comment Podcast. The backbone of America is the town square, the hometown values, and the diversity of thought and ideas that unite to create a community. The Public Comment Podcast is a transparent and nonpartisan place to educate each other about current events and public policy, to support local businesses and entrepreneurs, to discuss public opinion, thoughts, and feelings, and to engage in community action to create the people's vision. Our local elected officials are an important part of this. The 6th District Commission race is a nonpartisan race. It has 3 candidates this year, meaning it has a primary election. Only the top 2 candidates from the August 6th primary election, 1 week from today, will continue to the November general election. That means primaries are important to each of these candidates and to you to make sure your voter preference makes it to the general election. So be sure to get out and vote next Tuesday if you haven't done so already, and encourage your friends and neighbors to participate in one of the most important rights you have as Americans. Before we get into tonight's debate, we'd also like to thank all of our other sponsors who made this event possible. Our presenting sponsors are seen on the screen along with their websites and contact information. We've also included local businesses who help spread the word by posting event flyers. Just like elections, local businesses matter. They help form the communities that we all love, so remember to support local businesses whenever possible. The 6th District covers a lot of ground, extending all the way to the Miami County line on the south and the Douglas County line on the west. The communities include the cities of Olathe, Gardner, Edgerton, DeSoto, and the unincorporated townships outside of these cities, including an area of unincorporated Spring Hill. The format for tonight is as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We did not flip our coin to find out who's going first. You want to rock, paper, scissors? Everybody was busy. You want to go first for your opening statement, and then you'll get your final closing statement.
That's fine.
We'll spend approximately 1 hour this evening with a moderator-led debate. Some of the questions you hear tonight were asked in the private one-on-one interviews with the candidates before the event, and you can watch those on our website, publiccommentpodcast.com. Our website also had a form accepting questions from the public, so you'll also hear those questions this evening, along with others that we've heard throughout the community during the election cycle. In approximately an hour, we'll move on to the public question and answer portion of the night. You'll see index cards and pencils in your seats. If you'd like to write down your questions, you'll see our staff in the middle of the aisle here collecting with the bucket throughout the evening. If you want to write it on the card instead of asking it yourself, then we can ask those for you. But we'll also have an open mic coming around, so if you'd like to ask the question directly yourself, you're welcome to do that as well. We just ask that you're kind and respectful of our candidates, our hosts, and our sponsors with no personal attacks or threats. After the Q&A, we'll have a 2.5-minute closing statement for each candidate, with Mike Storm going first. Following the debate time, our candidates have agreed to stick around until 8:30 for one-on-one time. You can also visit their tables for campaign literature and yard signs. As for the rules, each candidate will have approximately 90 seconds to answer each question, and we'll alternate who goes first for each question. In certain situations, we will allow a rebuttal time if doing so helps the voters understand the issue more clearly, or if a candidate needs to reply to a comment or an accusation. We ask the candidates to maintain decorum by being respectful to each other, the host, sponsors, and guests. With that, if everyone will make sure your cell phones are on silent, let's begin. Carrie, are you timing for me? We have a timer.
Do I have time?
Do you want to flip it? You want time? That's all right. I don't see Lynn. Oh, there she is. Do you want to time their 90 seconds, Lynn? Okay. Please get one for us. You can think of everything in
Do you want me to start, and
advance.
then we can just
Yeah,
go
we,
on
we,
from there?
well, we can do that. You want to start with your
Sure.
opening? Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Tony Brigida, and I'm running for County Commission here in the 6th District because it feels like the world is going crazy. And I know folks here in this room, we're not going to be able to necessarily change what's going on in DC or even Topeka, but we can make a difference here in our community. I'm a small business owner. I own a residential cleaning company that serves residents here in Johnson County. I'm also on the Olathe Planning Commission. So I understand when folks feel like there's one set of rules that apply to them and another set of rules that apply to the big guy. As your commissioner, I want to lower your property taxes, keep this area safe, and protect our quality of life. 7 years ago, I didn't know it at the time, but I married into an old Johnson County family that's lived here since the 1800s. I married the love of my life, my wife, Anna, who's there in the back, with our 3 children, Joe, Izzy, and Will, who we're raising here in Johnson County. This is our home. After the performance of the first debate, the incumbent decided not to show up to this one. I think that speaks volumes to where we're at as a county. I'm the only candidate that's shown up to every single forum, and I'm the only candidate that will fight for you on a regular basis on the county commission. So I thank you all for being here. I'm looking forward to our discussion this evening. Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight. I'm Mike Storm. I am proud to stand before you tonight as a candidate for Johnson County Commissioner District 6. As a small business owner and a resident of Johnson County of over 40 years, I have witnessed many changes that have, you know what? I'm just going to speak for the heart. I've been here for a long time. I've gone to school with many of the people in this room and in this neighborhood. I've been, I've kind of done my own thing. Grew up in DeSoto, 2 years there in school, 4 years here in Gardner, 2 years in Lewisburg. I came back from the Navy and met my wife, and we started our family and started businesses here. I don't know what's going on with the rest of the world. I just care about the 6th District. I care about what's going on in Edgerton. I care about what's going on in Gardner. Coming into Olathe and DeSoto, these are my areas. This is where I grew up. This is where I live. I've been here for, geez, for what seems forever. Going on 50 years, pretty close. We've been married 22 years, and she's put up with just about everything I could throw at her except for this. We'll see how this goes. So I can't wait to get this going. And in a rebuttal to the forum suggestion, one forum I didn't show up at, I was sick. I still am trying to get over it. It was an ear infection, and that's it.
You have our timer for 90 seconds? Okay, so we'll begin. So as you can imagine, the first question is about property taxes and the budget. With the cost of living drastically increasing over the past several years, the threat of residents of all ages losing their homes to rising property taxes is greater now more than ever. Cindy and Gardner asked, can we get property taxes down, and how are you going to do that? I'm tired of my taxes going up. Let's see, we'll start with Mike since he just finished. Mike, your website says the county government's tax and spend behavior is out of control, and the taxpayers of Johnson County deserve a break. You can count on my vote to cut your taxes. Please explain how you intend to address this.
We have a mill levy that's set, and what people don't understand about the mill levy is they can sit and talk about it at the county commissioners, that we can lower the mill levy. We've done it every year. But what they fail to explain is that the appraisers are raising your taxes, are raising your values of your homes, which is causing your taxes to go up. The tax and spend I talk about is more of the pet project stuff, the The solar farm that we're doing, the mental health facility, the homeless shelter, some of this can be not just eliminated, but it could at least be privatized. We have opportunities everywhere to cut money back. We have money in reserves, not just in the general fund, but each one of the mills carries a little reserve that's county policy. They're also carrying more than what's available on the county policy, meaning that if they're allowed 8% by their mill to carry over, some of them are carrying 19 to 20%. We can get that money back and give it back to the people if we did it right.
Tony, your website says lower your property tax burden, and you sent out a mailer that said no property taxes. Explain to the voters how you plan to either have no property taxes or what areas you see room for immediate tax cuts.
So this is one area where we agree. Spending is out of control and property taxes are out of control. And the lie that we're consistently sold is that, oh, we're going to lower your mill levy just a little bit. Then your appraised values go up by 10% or so, and you, the taxpayer, have to eat it. You know, spending over the last 4 years since the incumbent has been in there has increased 47%. There's one thing where local government tries to pass the buck, like, oh, it's not our fault. The incumbent at the last forum tried to claim that she had no control over your property taxes. And that's simply not true. We do over the mill levy. We can see that as appraised values increase, say your appraised value goes up by 10%, the county commission has the ability to lower your mill levy proportionately so that your taxes for the county do not increase. The county commission controls about 20 to 25% of your property taxes, depending on where you live. And I think there's a number of different ways we could get there, but I think it's very reasonable that we'd be able to give you a $200 tax cut right away, and then prevent your property taxes from going up, at least on the county side. Roughly 55% of your property taxes go to public education, some goes to local government, the state, etc. But the budget has gone up from like 1.25, I want to say I have to look at that number again. But this year they're looking to make it $1.83 billion, with about $450 million in reserves and about $1.366 billion in spending. It's out of control. We, as county commissioners, should not shift the blame. And when elected, I will do everything I can to lower your property taxes.
So Tony, real quick, is getting up and down messing with your videos? Should we stay here for you? Are you okay?
It's okay.
Do you want us to just stay? We'll just stay instead if we could, and that way she can capture us here, so we don't ruin the live stream for those at home. And Lynn, I can't see you very well, so when it's at 90, just say time, or give us a thumbs up for 30 or something. Give us just a little warning. So, so Tony, along those lines, do you support third-party audits, and do you see a particular fund or department that you would like to take a deeper look into right off the bat?
So does this work for the live stream? I just want to still be able to talk with you all,
right.
so I'm not way over here. Yes, I do support third-party audits. So there is currently an audit that's done every year, and there's an internal auditor who does performance audits. The county is getting a new auditor, and so I'm hoping that that auditor will perform some internal financial audits so that we can look at different programs, see how much we're spending per service. Because we offer some good services here in Johnson County. The concern is, though, if you look at the citizen survey, among many residents is that we're overpaying for these services. And so, yes, I am 100% supportive of audits. I think there needs to be transparency. By statute, the budget must be balanced, and so it is. We're just not getting the most bang for our buck with your tax dollars. And so my hope is with the new auditor, the county commission does hire the auditor, that we get into the numbers and find ways that we can save you money.
Third district, or third Yeah, I'm for it. We need some transparency across the board. We can identify pet projects very easily by allowing a third to come in and do a complete audit, not just one that's regulated by Mr. Kelly. We need to focus mostly on where we're going with our money with the shelter, the homeless shelter up there. I think that we can claw some money back, put that to rest, use our money wisely, help our vets and our people from our community. I was at the BOCC meeting the other day. I was kind of sick when I heard that it wouldn't be for just Johnson County residents. It would be for anybody that comes into Johnson County that needs a place to shelter. I heard the church say that they could do 10 beds each. They're asking for 200 beds for this facility. I think the auditor would come in and say, you know, it's better money spent. We could use it somewhere else. $10 million for a facility that we have no idea how much more is going to be needed over the next few years, sorry.
Stay there. We got the next ones for you. So while we're talking about budgets, as a business owner or with your past experience, what is your qualifications or experience in budgets and financial statements?
We have, my wife and I have several businesses. We've either sold or we still operate today. I'm not going to get into specific names, but we ride a budget like you would ride your house budget. We make sure that we don't have any leftover just to throw around. At the end of the month, we sit and try to figure out exactly what we're going to go with, how we're going to do vans, how we're going to do our employees' benefit packages, and we try to do as much as we can for as little as we have. Make the dollars stretch as far as it goes. Not unlike your house, not unlike your budgets. So I think that when we bring what we bring to the table, what I bring to the table, is just common sense. A lot of this boils down to just common sense spending. Don't spend more than you have.
Tony, your experience?
Yeah, so I'm also a small business owner here in Johnson County. And before this, for the last 7 years, I worked in research and development, where my final position was managing the finances for the company. So I'm very familiar with audits, with different financial statements, the difference of GAAP, or FASB and GASB, and all the different mechanisms that we're working with intergovernmental, federal funds, and that sort of thing. And so I bring that aspect to the budget. I know what it's like to have to cut a budget. I know it cannot always be easy, but you have to make sure that you fund the core services, the things that people truly care about. And another item that we agree on is transparency when it comes to the budget. One thing I've heard from a number of residents is how they're unable currently to get feedback or give how they feel about the spending of our county to our current county commissioner. And a great way for that to happen is through forums. And so on May 18th, there was a forum where the current incumbent was invited and did not attend. On June 6th, the Faithful Patriots as a group, they they another speaking opportunity for all the BOCC candidates. I was the only one to attend. On July 11th, June 24th, the Northeast Conservatives had another forum where my understanding is that they had reached out to Alan Brand as well. She did not attend. I was the only candidate present there as well. On July 11th, we had our first forum, and this is where some of the questions came to the commissioner regarding the budget, and became abundantly clear there wasn't the same information coming from the commissioner as what residents are experiencing in terms of their increase in taxes. And so I will make myself readily available to residents to make sure there's the transparency and feedback that would go along with cutting our budget. Thank you.
So one area of the budget that's mentioned is mental health. Tony, your platform states you will prioritize spending in core services in addressing key problems like mental health. How do you plan to address mental health, and what, if anything, would you change?
So the mental health crisis in this country continues to grow. My wife, right out of college, was a substance abuse counselor, and it's something that I've seen firsthand what it can do to different people. And this is a rising need in our community as well. And so with mental health, we need to make sure that, A, we're getting the proper results that we're spending our money on, that we're actually helping people, and that we're providing the resources for folks to be productive members of society. This is one of those things where I believe that we can work together to provide residents the items that they need in our county, but at the same time, too, not write a blanket check. I believe spending on public health over the last 4 years has gone up 51%. And while spending on public safety has gone up by about 50 or 32%, and spending overall has gone up by 47%. So we are putting the resources there. I think across the board, we're going to have to look at our spending increases. This is just a way of me saying that I'm not going to go after the budget that we have for mental health to make sure that we have the counselors there to meet the needs of the community.
Mike, do you believe there's a mental health problem that needs addressed by the county? If not, explain, and if so, how do you plan to do this?
Mental health is on the commissioners. They are crazy, spending money like drunk sailors. We need to learn to privatize. I'm going to say this again. We need to learn to privatize some of the services that we offer. Not saying we can't incentivize those services, but we need to privatize them. Earlier I said something about the mill levy. The mill levy I was talking about happened to be healthcare, mental health specifically. They have 19% in their coffers, where the county says the policy is for 8% in reserves. There's no explanation given. That's why I think that transparency is huge. We need to know why they have this money. If it's for future use, explain what the future use is. I don't have a problem with money. You know, if you have a situation where you need it for, say, the fire department, you may not use all the money this year. You may save some of it back to buy a truck. Those trucks are not cheap, so you may need it. I understand that. So I'm not a stickler about it, but 19% seems awfully high when our taxes keep going up. So.
May I make a brief point about reserves?
I'm actually going to talk about that next. So Mike, if you want to stay up here, then Tony can come back with the final on his reserves. So in 2015, the mental health budget was $28.973 million. That number in 2024 was a 106% increase in 10 years to $59.6 million, and they've asked for an increase this year of another $9.4 million. So that's a 138% increase from 2025 since 2015. In 2024, as we were talking about the reserves and stuff, so we can address that. Mike, do you believe the county is currently underfunded, overfunded, or at a good balance on the mental health budget?
Say they're overfunded. Mental health is I'm not a mental health expert. I don't know how many of you guys are, but I'm not a doctor, and I would rely on the commission to give us good information and be transparent about it. We don't seem to get that at all. We just seem to keep pushing the can down the road, and they keep adding more money and taking some. I think it's almost like a distribution of wealth. We keep taking from people that have it and putting it back in coffers for whatever reasons. We need to open those coffers up and explain why we have them, what the intentions are going to be for them, And if we don't have a good use for them, we need to give it back to the people like we supposedly what we've been promised.
So Tony, on this part, you can address the reserves, but I wanted to clarify, you mentioned public health budget and mental health. Mental health is, public health would be like the health department, and they have a whole separate mental health fund. And so by your statement of prioritizing spending, how do you feel? Are we overfunded, underfunded? Do you like the increase from 2024 to 2025, or where do you feel that needs to be?
Sure. So one of those things where we manage expectations. And so this is one of those items where I want to see what are our performance metrics for success with Johnson County Mental Health. From talking to counselors and folks that have been involved in the organization, they would have been historically severely understaffed. And so that's something that before I comment as to whether we're overfunded or underfunded per se, I'd like to talk to those counselors and see what was our caseload coming in, what was the success rate of folks. Did you help people graduate, if you will, to a point where they didn't need these services? Because there are a lot of folks that have severe mental health problems in our community. And so in terms of the overall budget, I think we do need to pare back significantly, potentially even across the board. But I won't be able to say that. I don't think, based on the feedback I have so far, I don't think we would be cutting back our spending on mental health at this time. In terms of the overall budget and reserves, the policy of the county commission is, I believe it's 12.5% to 25% that we keep in reserves. And sometimes the commission has gone a little bit above that, but if you look at the increases in spending overall, it's matched that. So the increase in reserves is roughly 46% as well since the time the commissioner's gotten on there. And that's because of bond ratings. You have to have above a certain amount in reserves for Moody to get cheaper rates and things like that. So that's why we have as much as we do in reserves. My concern with reserves, similar to that of my opponent, is that there's not the same level of accountability. There's a lot of transfers from one year to another. There was even one instance where funds were transferred from the general fund to the library in a way that was potentially illegal. And so, yes, I think there needs to be more accountability. If we can reduce our number of reserves to give you a tax break, I'm all for that, but that is the policy.
And to address the reserve for the audience, there is a general fund, but then there's multiple smaller funds. So the 911, the public health, the mental health, each one of those has their own reserve. County policy, I wrote an article on it last year. I never could figure out what dictated the county policy and why they were allowed to exceed that, but the actual mental health last year in my article that I wrote was 16.5%. When it was 8 to 12 reserved for the mental health fund, and this year they're up to 19.6%. And sometimes they will say, like last year they had in the library section, 600,000 of these reserves are going to go to some library renovations, and so there's some notes on that. But a lot of these funds, they don't have the notes, but they do just have a padded budget that just keeps getting bigger. Whereas they could look at possibly lowering the mill even further for those funds in order to use those reserves up and save the taxpayer. So moving on, conflicts of interest. The Johnson County Chairman, Mike Kelly, was the founder of Climate Action KC, which is heavily influenced and implemented through policy recommendations and marketing of the Mid-America Regional Council, also known as MARC or MARC. With commissioners serving on boards and committees of MARC, do you believe they have a conflict of interest when voting for items that are affiliated with these organizations? And do you believe they should recuse their votes on any items benefiting these committees and organizations they are involved with? And I believe, Tony, you finished, so you get to go again on this one.
So I just want to make sure I understand the question. You're saying that any vote where we're appropriating funds to MARC, the members that are on MARC should recuse themselves.
Do you believe that?
Okay. Policies like that do make sense to me. You know, I've always been taught that you don't even want to give the appearance of corruption. And I think there have been a number of instances where that has not been the case with the commission. Just recently, the Attorney General's office put out an opinion where the commissioners had to take classes for KORA violations. This is not something that we want to be happening with the county. We need to be transparent in all things, and if there was a prior organization that the chairman or some other member has been deeply involved in, or a business that someone has been deeply involved in. These are instances where the public is completely right to push back and say, hey, in this instance, you should recuse yourself.
Very good. Climate Action KC, just reaching out for that one for a second. That's Mr. Kelly, Commissioner Kelly's pet project. Climate Action KC, if you read through their action, what they're trying to achieve is to work with MARC, which is Mid-American Regional Council, and they're trying to take the atmosphere of what they're doing is put out you messed me up. They put out a thing down in Edgerton about their whole deal with Climate Action KC is to utilize the monies for reducing emissions. One of their biggest things was heat from buildings. 63% is what they said that Kansas City puts out. But in Edgerton, they're building warehouse after warehouse after warehouse. So if these buildings put out so much heat, then why are we building all these warehouses? That's one thing. Secondly, I think if you're a part of anything that looks bad, as my opponent said, you should recuse yourself. If you are renting office space from a developer, you should recuse yourself if his stuff comes across your table. You should, if you're on a committee and something comes across, you just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna have to sit this one out. It doesn't always happen. I know the current commissioner that we're trying to unseat is in that, and I'm going to shut up.
Stay. I'm going to give a part 2 on this. Another example of a conflict with Chairman Kelly is his serving on the board for the World Cup in Kansas City while voting as a Johnson County Commissioner to approve $1.5 million in taxpayer funds for the World Cup. Do you believe this is appropriate for him to vote on that project? Why or why not?
Absolutely not, first of all. Secondly, I don't think we should be giving money for transit for the cup. I'm going to just be a little controversial there. First of all, the reason being is because when we take private money or take taxpayer money and we put it into a system, we eliminate the private. We eliminate the Uber drivers and Lyft drivers trying to get, that's how they make their money, is getting people from point A to point B. So running our tax money against these people is wrong in my opinion. We need to stop. We need to look deeper into some of these things and see if there's a way to help out our local people. As far as Mike Kelly goes, is recusing himself, he's not the only one on there. I believe Janae Hanslick is also a sitting commissioner, and she is on Mid-America Regional Council as well.
So I think this falls into the same principle as the last question, where you have folks who are sitting on a committee, and then they're also voting to allocate funds to that committee. And so yes, that does bring up even the appearance of a conflict of interest. Similar to my opponent, one of the things that bothers me is how on a number of different projects, we find money for these big, expensive projects, but then when it comes to giving folks a tax cut, we're not able to find the funds to do so. And so for me, if you look at the palm card that's on all your chairs, it says put residents first. And I truly mean that. And so if the folks in Johnson County really wanted us to fund this project, I would do the will of the people and vote for it. But from what I've heard at the doors, that is not what people want. People want a break. They want to keep us safe. and they want us to protect our quality of life. And so that's where I would spend your money as your representative.
So aside from the boards and the committees, another area we see sometimes as the voters are campaign finance reports and funding. So if you had a developer or someone that was one of your made campaign contributions, or you had business relationships with them that could potentially create a conflict of interest, would you recuse yourself from that vote on a developer project if they were a campaign donor for you? And I believe it is Mike's turn.
Simple question, simple answer. I would absolutely recuse myself. If I'm in any shape or form connected to anybody that I would make a vote on, I would recuse myself. That's just the simplest form to say.
Tony?
So the reverse of this would also be true, that we would have to recuse ourselves from all the projects where they donated to our opponent. And if we were to do that, we would not be voting on the vast majority of projects. And so I could recognize it, and if it was to a point where there might be a potential conflict, I could see myself recusing from a couple things, but they are not my biggest donors in this campaign. And so, so that I can represent you and vote on the vast majority of projects, no, I would not recuse myself from this.
So roads and transit. Would you support an express lane toll road on K10, such as what is being built on 69 Highway? Explain, and I think Tony gets to go first on this one.
No.
Mike?
Ditto, but I'm gonna add a little bit to that. Why we compete with ourselves is ridiculous with our money. K10 is proposing a express lane when 69 is getting theirs in. That's our money. I don't care if the government's giving it back to us or what. It's still our money. Why would we pay extra to get in that lane? It's infrastructure that's around it that's caused the problem. There's an easier fix, but it doesn't have to. It shouldn't always come with add more money. Just keep giving us more money. We need to stop that, and we need to stop it soon.
Continuing on with roads, although Gardner blocked intermodal truck traffic on 199th Street, there's still talk of an outer loop highway, like 435. On the west side along the Douglas-Johnson County line, it might be somewhere between Evening Star Road, Edgerton Road, the Douglas County line. On the south side, along the Miami County-Johnson line, they're putting anywhere between 207th to 223rd. Edgerton just released their current comprehensive plan map that showed the potential plan. Do you agree with this highway that could use eminent domain against the residents? If not, why? And if you do agree with it, where do you propose is the best location for it? Mike, it's your turn to go first.
That's a lot. So my understanding is they're trying to run from K10 down through County Line, Dilley, or Edgerton Road. Those are your options. It's going to be a mile wide. They're going to just take the land, basically. Residents aren't going to have a whole lot to say about it. And then they're going to tie it in somewhere around I-35 and on down towards 69. And I may be off a little bit on that. I think we should use the opportunity to run it down and hit it into 68 Highway. We already own that. It's already done. We're not taking anything from anybody. We're leaving the residents alone. And these people aren't getting asked. They're getting told. Again, this is our money. It's our stuff. We should be telling them, not the other way around.
So there's a couple things we need to take into consideration with this. Number one is I hate eminent domain. The government coming and taking your land, I really hate it. Secondly, we also need to make sure that any truck traffic is coming out and it's on a safe roadway. What was happening on 199th was not safe. They were running cars off of the roads. So we need to make sure that we're accommodating for safety and that we are not infringing on people's rights. This is something that's been discussed for decades now, like 20 years plus. The need for additional ways so that we keep truck traffic on appropriate roadways, we keep commute times low, etc. My biggest problem, they purchased a study, 7-county study or some variation of that name. My biggest problem with this is that resident feedback is more or less towards the middle or end where it doesn't properly account for the project. Once again, we're not putting residents first in terms of what we see as our needs, where we don't want this road to go. Instead, it's being at the tail end where we can just give input and change some minor details. So what I would change differently is I would move resident feedback to the front so that we know exactly where we don't want it to go and so that we're appropriately accommodating truck traffic so it doesn't have to come right by your house.
The next topic is economic development and tax incentives. As you can imagine, in 6th District, we have a lot of this going on right now, so we received so many questions. So I tried to organize them without being too redundant on what we already discussed in the last videos. You can watch those, but we will touch on some of those briefly. See, Tony, are you first this time? I think so. We heard from several people about exploding growth in the 6th District, economic development, and tax incentive. Tony, your website states stop tax giveaways for mega apartment complexes and special interests. Yet projects approved by you as a planning commissioner in Olathe have went on to receive hundreds of millions in tax incentives to special interests and mega apartments with no stipulations set by the planning commission to stop these incentives. How do you reconcile that discrepancy and what will be different once you are on the commission?
So this deals with differences in roles. In the same way that we don't want an activist Supreme Court deciding laws for residents and that we have a legislature for it, we don't want planning commissions based on whether they like a project or not, willy-nilly deciding if this is according to the UDO or according to local ordinance and plans. That's even something that was a case, the case of Golden, which is now laid out the Golden criteria for what are all the different ways that a planning commission or even city council can vote against a project. So I've voted for projects that I don't like. But whenever there was a clear, compelling reason, for instance, with a recent apartment complex up in Cedar Creek, I don't think it fit the character of the community, it didn't coincide with the comprehensive plan, I voted against that project. So I've never voted on incentives. And what we have done in general in Johnson County is we've moved away from this idea that incentives are only for blighted areas, which if you think about it makes sense. If there's an area that it needs some work for public safety or also the community, that's where I can make some more sense. But it's gotten to a point where we pass out an incentive, we just rubber stamp them, it's a boilerplate template, and it's millions of dollars. The abatements are for years and years and years, and you and I are ending up paying for that. And so this is an area where, as your county commissioner, I will focus on the things that I can control, and unless there's a strong, compelling case for why we should do this incentive, I will be voting against incentives.
Because you buy the land doesn't mean you can do anything you want with it. I'm just going to say that just for all of it that are here. You shouldn't be able to go out and buy 80 acres and put a junkyard in the middle of it next to a housing development. There's people around there, they should have a say in it. Much like these apartment complexes and such that Tony was speaking about. We don't want told how to live. The people that live in Johnson County, specifically in the 6th District, we moved to a slower life. Most of it goes on in the other part of Olathe, over towards Overland Park, up towards the plaza. Those areas, they wanted their life the way they wanted it. They don't mind living next door to each other. We wanted open, we wanted the hometown country feel. That's what I wanted. That's what I still am pushing for. The problem is these planners, they don't go through and do their due diligence. I realize that there's a set guideline that they have to abide by, but they also have to understand that people have a right to know what's going on and have some kind of say in it. When you put a apartment complex, 500, I believe, apartments next to a set of million-plus homes, dollar homes, there's going to be some people upset. I know I'm one of them, and I don't own a $1 million home. But I'm just saying that we need to get together as voters. We need to get out. The biggest problem I have with Johnson County is we just do generational politics. We're going to get out. We're going to do it next time. That's the number one thing I keep hearing. And she doesn't like that idea. But we're going to get them. We're going to put things back the way that should be when we talk to our neighbor and get things under control.
Stay there. You're the next one on this next question. Bill and Gardner said, what are your specific thoughts around helping local businesses, businesses that are owned by individuals who reside in the 6th District? What would be your ideas for implementing county efforts to create incentives focused on local small business development versus the county continuing to prioritize incentives for out-of-state foreign entities locating and operating in the 6th District? And then do you support tax incentives for local small businesses?
What a novel idea that we take the money that's given to the taxpayer or by the taxpayer and give it back to them for something that the community needs. I don't really need to say much more than that.
Tony?
The way local government can help small businesses here in our community is by getting out of the way. You know, when we're building a new home, 26% of the costs come down to government regulation. If there's a regulation where it slows the cost of building a new home based on financing, that adds costs to the builder. Too often, government makes it harder to do business than actually helping. Ronald Reagan once said, the most feared words of the English language are I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So I understand that the role of the county commissioner is to represent you. It's not going to be able to solve everyone's problems. Another way that we'd be able to help small businesses is I attended a number of chamber meetings regarding a large development project. And at every single one of those meetings, a small business would get up and say something to the effect of, hey, it's great that all these jobs are coming into town, but what about me? I've been part of this community for 20 years, and you're using my tax dollars to fund my competitor. And I think that's wrong. And so, no, I'm a small business. I do business here, not over in Lawrence. I do business here in Johnson County. I'm not going to be the savior for small business, but I can get out of the way, understand what they're going through, and support them as well.
Okay, if you want to stay up there for the next question, we're going to switch, same concept as far as agriculture and community. Renee in McCamish Township said, how important is it to you to protect what's left of the 6th District and all of Johnson County's remaining agriculturally zoned land? If it is a priority for you, what efforts will you make as a commissioner to protect the local family farming operations, agribusiness, and livestock operations in the 6th District's unincorporated townships? If it's not a priority, what do you see the future looking like instead?
I want to do what's best for farm owners and property owners. I grew up across the street from a 1,000-acre farm. We had 5.5 acres. My wonderful mom, God bless her, we had probably an acre, 2 acres of garden, which I spent a lot of time in growing up, and mowed the rest of it sitting on a tractor. It was one of the most peaceful things. And whenever I'm out in the unincorporated part of the district, going to visit a farm, I just remember the peace that comes from the rural area. And I joked to my wife the other day, I'm like, we need land. That's the next trip I'm on. So I want to do what's best for farmers. And I know a lot of farmers have expressed concerns about still being able to make money on their land here in Johnson County. And we also need to protect the natural beauty of Johnson County. We need to conserve. You know, way back in the day when old settlers were moving out here, out east, there would be pamphlets that were circulated that called Johnson County the Eden of Kansas. And I fully believe that. We live in a beautiful part of Kansas. I think we should protect our natural beauty as well. I think we should support our farmers. This is something where I'm not going to pretend I have all the solutions, but I'm looking forward to working with the Johnson County Farm Bureau and property owners in the rural part of the district, make sure we protect their property rights and do what's best for them.
Wow. Sweet. Look, if you've never owned a chunk of land and you want it as your own, it's impossible now in Johnson County to do that. They have taxed just about everybody off their land, and they're trying to push the rest of them off. I only have 20 acres. It's not by any means a farm, unless it's just all about growing grass and, yeah, mowing's fun, a blast. But let me tell you, I wouldn't go anywhere else. I love being able to get out on my property and just stretch out, have fun with my family, friends come over. We can, because we have 20 acres, we're able to shoot guns. We're able to ride ATVs. We can do anything we want. We have options. And I'm all for keeping families on their farms, not pricing them off of them.
Stay there for the next question. On solar, Commissioner Allenbrand has utility-scale solar listed as one of her areas of focus on her county info page, and as thousands of acres of Johnson County land to the west may be used for utility-scale solar. Do you approve of utility-scale solar facilities in Johnson County? Why or why not?
I don't. I don't believe that the people there, first of all, I don't believe they want it. Secondly, technology is a dangerous thing. We're just touching bits and pieces of it, and we haven't got it completely understood. So why ruin the land? Why take land that's meant for farming and land that's meant for running cattle or whatever, and taking it and putting it with solar panels all over the top of it? It doesn't make sense to me. But, you know, the do-you people, the people that from in town, that's what they want to do. They've always, I've lived here since 1977, and the goal is to make Gardner and Edgerton the armpit of Johnson County. They've always treated them that way, and they'll continue to treat them that way. So one of the things I want to do, I know it's a Charter Commission item, but I want to take and introduce Gardner and Edgerton taking a seat at the table, dividing the 6th district in half and making Gardner a 7th seat. By doing that, we eliminate the chair at Johnson County.
Tony?
So after conversations I've had with residents, members of zoning boards, and members of Gardner government, I'm for reopening a discussion that was placed on CUPs out there for industrial solar. I think we would be able to find a solution where we're reducing the size and scope of these different farms so that we're A, not infringing on people's property rights, but B, once again, protecting the natural beauty that we have here in Johnson County and making sure that we're not overwhelmed by these farms.
So that's yes, just smaller? Is that?
Yes to smaller,
Okay.
yes.
We may have kind of covered this, but let me just say it just in case. We're still on Tony here. So what will you do to prevent the important rural land use and character from slowly disappearing due to the potential of utility scale solar?
So I have a quick question. When are we going to have the hard question for Mike?
Which one? Oh, so what's you need a hard one? Have I had
Well,
one?
I had one directly hard at me, so I was wondering whether we're going to have one towards him.
Okay.
In terms of a changing way of life, and this is a conversation I've had in Gardner and in DeSoto primarily, where there's rapid change in the character of the community, and there seems to be pushing aside what the residents want. I think this is a distinction between my opponent and I. He's anti-development, I'm pro-smart development. I think we are going to continue to grow. You see what happens in some communities where there's no growth? That's not a good thing. We do not want that here in Johnson County. We're going to continue to grow. It's just a matter of if we're going to have a seat at the table and determine how this impacts our community. Because especially for residents of DeSoto and when it comes to Gardner, I want to make sure that as this change is coming down the pipeline, that they're not getting driven out of their homes, that they're still remaining in a safe community, that they feel like their input and that they still have a place here in their community. Those are all things I'm going to fight tooth and nail for every single day. That's something that we can't have if we're just going to say all development bad. And so I'm going to do my best to represent the interests of rural Johnson County, to preserve it, while at the same time accommodating for the natural growth that is occurring and that we're not going to be able to stop.
Well, that was pretty nice statement. Thanks for thinking for me. That's not true. I'm not an anti-development guy. I'm for responsible development. Let's get that straight. I only want what's best for the community. We need things for the community. I'm for it. If the community wants it, let's do it. But I don't want to just willy-nilly run out there, shotgun blast everything, put everything everywhere and just see what works and then kind of let what falls off fall off. That's what we keep doing and lately, and some people are part of it, as far as I'm concerned. When you're part of the Planning Commission, you have a right to say something. You can put on there, you may not like it, put that on there. You can put all kinds of recommendations on there. That's what they're there for. You're a part of the Planning Commission, and then it goes to full council. So don't be fooled by I'm for or I'm against. Read between the lines.
Stay there and answer about Panasonic. Commissioner Allenbrand also has the Sunflower Area Plan Update listed under her webpage as 6th District concerns. This Superfund cleanup site was approved for Panasonic's highly subsidized location. Do you support the Panasonic plant and the incentives given?
Can we do it as simple? No. No. I don't know if you guys are paying attention. I hope you are. There's some stark contrast between me and both opponents. First of all, Panasonic only has to they have to build one battery and they have achieved everything. They met their goals. That's it, one battery. And as far as I'm concerned, and what I'm listening to from people around the community, that may not happen. They may just be able to build one battery because some of the orders that were supposed to come in for those batteries have fallen by the wayside. We've all heard it on the news. It's not something I'm just standing up here and making up. That's all fallen by the wayside. And likewise, DeSoto's getting from both sides. They're getting a facility there that's supposed to give them jobs. They're bringing in their own jobs. It's supposed to give them some relief there on their taxes. It's not happening either. They're going to increase their taxes because they're going to have to do all the infrastructure to support that in the first place. So just listen and pay attention a little bit to some of the things that are being said, because if we don't start stopping some of these things from happening, and I realize that was a state situation, but trust me, Johnson County had a word in it, and they approved it.
When I've gone to DeSoto, we've knocked almost the entire city of DeSoto and talked to folks out on their doorstep. And the two things that we hear the most about are Panasonic and taxes. What's done is done in terms of Panasonic. I personally would have steep reservations about giving that much money, especially from the county coffers, to one entity. And my opponent is partially correct in terms of some of the technological things that we're seeing in terms of the EV market. Worked in research and development, and so I've followed the trends in terms of what the future is when it comes to that. But here's the deal. I really, really want Panasonic to be successful. And here's why. If it's not, it will be a catastrophe for the district. And so, once again, I am going to be working with folks in the district. One of the things that infuriated me the most was when I was out there on 95th Street and I saw people getting kicked out of their homes. It was infuriating to me because as a kid, my father was a realtor. And in 2008, the market crashed and we almost lost our home. I never, ever, ever want anyone else to go through that. And I want to make sure that the folks in that community feel like they're actually having an impact and not being overtaken. And so, yes, I do want Panasonic to be successful in that community, but no, I'm not happy about giving away your money to someone else.
Before you sit down, are you concerned with Panasonic becoming another Superfund site due to the battery storage or battery fires?
So I've talked to our fire chiefs regarding the potential hazards that are there, and my understanding is that Panasonic is cleaning up a significant portion of the site. In terms of the potential of fire, I think we've all seen those videos where an EV's got up in flames and they just keep pouring water on that thing and it won't go out. They're building a new fire station out there specifically for that. Panasonic is paying a portion of it. And I do think there are some concerns. I think there are some measures being taken to address that. I personally would like to see Panasonic pay for the whole thing and not just what they are paying for. But I do think a number of the concerns are being addressed. I'm just not convinced necessarily full enough.
And Mike, same question.
This is home, right? So anything that could go bad out there, I'm less than 6.5 miles due west of it, or due east of it. I was in the Navy, and a lot of times when we had a situation where we had a fire on board, you can't put them out. The only way you can put them out is let them burn out. I'm not so sure that we're not in that situation here. Some of the things I've heard from some of the firemen around, they've indicated that their concerns are that we are under trained, that we are under, we don't have the equipment for it. And so this is a learning curve for all of us, not just the community, but for the very people we look forward to take care of us. So you can take it for what it is.
Stay there. I'm being told I'm running out of time since we started late and we want plenty of question and answer time. So I'm going to jump ahead here. What is your first priority once on the commission?
Take Shirley Allen Brand's nameplate off. No, I have. You guys have no idea. This has been home for me for so long that it means everything to me. I got in this race late because of, well, the other person that was in decided to back out for whatever reason. I'll get into that later if we had to. But I plan on doing exactly what the people want. I want to give the seat back to the people. That's what it was intended to. It's not Shirley's seat. It won't be my seat. It'll just be a seat for the people. And that's the way it should have been all along. People should be great stewards, not just good stewards. I'm tired of hearing people, I'll be a good steward of your money. No, you should be a great steward. You should treat it like it's yours instead of just taking it and it's Danny DeVito. I don't know if you guys have paid attention to any old movies, but other people's money, you know, where they just willy-nilly don't care, they just throw it around. That's not me. I squeeze the life out of every one of my pennies because I want the maximum for it.
I want to cut your property taxes. That is the number one issue that from folks I'm hearing at the door, and that is the number one thing I'm going to fight for. I think if we be proactive in the budget process, go and meet with department heads while they're crafting their budget. Go through an itemized general ledger and look at, okay, this is what we're spending on here, this is what we're spending on there. From my time on the Planning Commission and having to approve CIPs, you have some sort of comparison piece. So if I see a building is costing twice as much over here as someone else did it over here, instantly that's a red flag. Maybe we need to look at doing this. What contractors are we looking to do with this? Do we really need a first-in-class, 3-story, sparkling, gold-plated building? I don't know, probably not. So I plan to be proactive in terms of working with staff, because half the battle is behind the scenes. And this is why I've been willing to show up at both conservative and liberal events. Unlike both of my opponents, I've shown up to everything, because I realize I'm going to have to work with people I disagree with and try to find a way behind the scenes to save you money. Because unless we have the votes, by the time that budget comes for approval, the battle is, the result is baked in the cake, if you will. And so that is my number one goal, is to cut your property taxes, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen.
Okay, we're going to take approximately 30 minutes for additional audience questions. Again, we ask that you're respectful in your questions with no personal attacks. Then following the Q&A time, we'll give each candidate a 2.5-minute closing statement before we have the opportunity for you to visit with them one-on-one until 8:30. So I'll grab these questions turned in, and Lynn is going to roam the crowd and see if anyone wants to ask one directly in the microphone while I sort these out. You want to walk around and see if anybody raises their hand? Oh, good, we have one. It gives me a minute.
You have a question?
Yeah. Great convo, guys. So everybody gets up and talks about, we have this issue, we have that issue. How can you guys actually fix, let's say, one of those top two issues? What power will you have? What can you do from your position to actually make it happen? Even given the fact that the board could be still stacked with one way. I hope that question makes sense.
Yeah. You want to go?
Sure. So currently we're down 5-2 on the board. After November, we'll be down 4-3. There's currently one member that's a bit of a swing vote on certain items. And so this is where it comes into play, being able to work with people that you disagree with. So I've already met with a number of different department heads. I didn't post it online as the incumbent did, because I genuinely wanted to understand where they were coming from, understand what are the things that they think are their impediments, so that I can come in and help guide them to a point where when we get to budget discussion time, we're at a much better place than where we would be otherwise. And so if we only get one on the board, my hope is that the makeup of the board shifts, because that changes the whole ballgame. But it's saying just we flip this seat. I don't think we'll be able to get quite the tax cut that I would like, but I think we'll be able to prevent your taxes from going up as much as they have been, if that answers your question.
We'll be in obscurity, be honest. There's no way around it. Just if this seat is flipped to a Republican, mind you, the other candidate switched from Republican to Democrat, so I'm going to just say that. If this seat shifts, it's only one. We have two other races out there for county commissioner that, quite frankly, that's what my opponent was talking about. We could potentially have 4-3, and we could start turning things around. But if people don't get out and vote, we're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to sit there in obscurity, just like we have sitting there right now. We have two sitting there that are just overrun on everything they decide. And I sat and I listened to them, and they put up valid fights. These are common sense arguments that the two that are sitting there are giving, and they got a rubber stamp. They can do anything they want, and they're doing it. And I hate to sit here and beat a dead horse, but if we don't seriously start getting out and getting people to vote, it's not going to matter.
Yes.
So since this seat is so crucial, what gives each one of you the upper hand to be being able to win against Shirley? Because from what I've seen, she is putting up a pretty good story out there.
Can I go first?
It's your turn.
So my standard answer is I'm better looking than Shirley. Ha ha. So, no. So, look, Shirley, Commissioner Allenbrand, she earned that seat when she took it. She was for us before she was against us. I'm not so sure that it's going to be too much different if we don't do some things differently. We don't get some votes. We don't listen. If we don't listen to the differences in Tony's argument and my argument, we're just going to be spinning our wheels again for another 4 years and play generational politics. And I'm tired of it, for one. For another, I'm not getting any younger. I don't know about you guys, but I turned 60 in this coming February. I don't want to do this for life. I'm not using this as a stepping stone to get to the next level. I will do this. If needed, I will stay, but I would hope that by then they have someone a viable candidate that would take the seat and carry it for another year or two. I mean, another term or two. That's the ultimate goal. But I like Tony. I really do. We have our differences, but at the end of the day, I still like him. But we see it different. We see different. I see this as my home. Tony, he came from Lawrence before he came from Virginia. We're different. I have Kansas values, and that's what I'm protecting. That's all I'm trying to do right now. I have 3 daughters I'm trying to raise. I'm very proud of, and they're flourishing like you wouldn't believe. And I want to protect that. And I want to stop what's going on right now in Johnson County. I want to turn it back around.
There's a couple things. One is electability, and I think there's a very clear case for why I'm the best candidate to unseat the incumbent, and I'll go through that. But also, too, there's one on who you can trust. You know, before my opponent decided to run from office, he's continually said that he's from here, and that I'm not. I've lived in Kansas pretty much my entire adult life. I married into an old Johnson County family, and I haven't made any sort of hiding away as to where I've been from. I also haven't misrepresented where I'm from. You know, conveniently, before my opponent decided to run, he didn't think he was from here. He thought he was from Lewisburg. It was only when he decided that he was going to go after me personally that he decided to change and say, oh, I'm from here and this guy isn't. And I think that's wrong. You know, in Kansas, we keep having this conversation about how we're going to get young people to move here. I was the chair of the Kansas Young Republicans, of the Young Republicans, and there's this pervasive attitude of the old guard trying to push down anyone that wants to get involved and do what's good for our community. And so in this election, there's a clear contrast between a fresh perspective for our county, or the old guard and the establishment that just want to keep doing things their way, the good old boy way. So that's one thing. The other thing, my opponent is right. This election is going to require a ton of energy to win. Our opponent is well financed, she has a machine behind her, and there is special interest money that's going to flow into this thing like you don't even believe. I've worked hard. I have outraised the incumbents, and I have folks that are willing to come in and help us win this thing. My opponent doesn't have any money in the bank. We've been out knocking doors across the whole district, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to pound the pavement every single day. And so I will work hard, I will have the resources to win this thing, and we will win this seat and return it back to you, the residents of the 6th District. Thank you.
I would like a rebuttal on that a little bit.
I said personal attacks would allow rebuttal, so since there was a personal thing, you can.
I'm just going to say this, and it's not against Tony. I want a Republican sitting in the seat next year. That's all. I am from here. Make no bones about it. I was born in Paola, Kansas. You're cute. I was born in Paola, Kansas. My family is from Lewisburg. When I was here in Gardner, okay, I was a 10th grader, and my mother came to me and said, would you be interested in going back to the school that my mom and dad graduated from and my grandparents graduated from? If it meant that much to her, you bet. You damn right. I took off. I went to Lewisburg. I graduated in Lewisburg. I left there and went in the Navy. And when I came back, guess where I came? Here. I have underwear older than this guy. And I don't. And like Reagan said, since he wants to quote the 9 words Reagan said, I want to quote something else. Youth and inexperience shouldn't be held against him. Really. He has his heart in the right place. I trust that. I fully believe that he believes he's doing the right thing. And I'm not taking that away from him. I know I'm a better candidate. I know that he has more money than me currently, but I got in the race 45 days ago. My name in this area, I'm well known. He's been in this race since 23, April of 23. And God bless him, he has done a great job. Not knocking him. But I still am a better candidate than he is. Because I know the passion for this place. I have it. I've been here. I know what it's like. I know all the families. I have friends that are buried in DeSoto Cemetery. I have friends that are buried here in Gardner. I've been here a long time. And thus, the community built me, and I'm built for this job for that reason.
So this next one, while Lynn's going to the in-person, we have a written one. We did the rebuttal. I think this is yours first. You had the first one, I think. How do you plan to fight the efforts by the Chinese Communist Party to integrate themselves into the Johnson County economy?
So what this is referencing to is incentives, again. It's funny, at the last debate, the incumbent once again tried to shift the blame and say, oh, we don't have any control over incentives, when she, in fact, voted for a $34 million IRB and the subsequent abatement for Shinano Industries, which is a wholly owned Chinese subsidiary. Or excuse me, it's a company that's wholly owned by the Chinese and has a communist connections as well. And so this is where, when I referenced at the beginning how it feels like the world's going crazy, this is something that we as county commissioners shouldn't be having to deal with in any way. The FBI's issued statements on this, and who knows what's going to happen with the upcoming elections, what the national policy will be, and how that relates to us locally. But here again, with us locally, we need to do our part. And so with that, I'm open to talking to legislators and seeing what we can put in place in terms of stipulations that are within the confines of the law to make sure that we are not putting adversarial entities right by our military bases.
And Mike? How do you plan to fight it?
Well, first of all, quit incentivizing, I agree. But secondly, no foreign company should own Kansas soil, period. That's how you stop it. You just quit giving it to them. You quit giving them opportunity, and you quit giving them money, and they will quit coming. They're not doing anything for us that we can't do for ourselves. And I think it should be for here, from here, always. That's it, in a nutshell.
Lynn, do you have another in-person?
Did you have a question? Well, can you stand up, please?
So any business has a real key to their business, whether they're having a profit or a loss. If they're losing money, they begin to cut their expenses somewhere. City and county governments don't have that measure, so they just raise taxes. I do my budget. My wife and I are retired. We're on a fixed income. And at the end of every year, we have to prioritize our budget. We've given up vacations to Florida every year, cable TV. We've given up lower Christmas gifts because our income isn't matching the taxes that our county is imposing on us. How are you going to get our governments to actually prioritize their spending instead of just raising taxes on the people?
So Mike is the first one on this one.
Just say no. Just quit trying to tax our seniors out of their homes. First of all, I have a senior in the home. I have several friends of mine that are seniors. Most of them are retiring this year, and they're banging on my door about the same things. I agree with you. I will be one of those guys soon, if God willing, I get that far. We don't have a way to keep our talent here either. Same thing. We're trying to say we're going to do all these apartments. We're going to do all this family-friendly experiments where we do multifamily housing. They don't work. They don't work for Johnson County. They may work for Overland Park. They may work for a specific area of town. They're not going to work for the 6th, because that's not what we want. We want to live here. We want to, and I just say it. I mean, I can't. My idea was to live and die here, right? So I don't have any. I didn't have any plans to go anywhere else. Not saying I couldn't make some, I guess, but yeah, we need to start prioritizing seniors. We need to start. One of my ideas that I'm currently talking to some people about is putting a freeze on property tax, that it couldn't go up more than 3%. So at least you know next year when your taxes go up, it's not going to exceed what you can afford, hopefully. But I have kids in my nieces and nephews. They're getting married and trying to find a house. They're not staying in Johnson County. They're moving to Miami County. They're moving to Douglas County. They're moving over across the Missouri line. They can't afford to stay here. Even in an apartment, believe it or not, apartment complexes, $1,500 for an apartment, a 1-bedroom, that's ridiculous. But we keep incentivizing them, they'll keep building them. That's just the way it is. We need to stop it. We need to stop it, let them use their own money. If they're going to do it, let them build their own. We should have done that with everything else going on in Johnson County right now, too.
So this is a very real problem that we need a very real solution to. Unfortunately, the cap on property taxes, the county commission can only control the 20 to 25% that it controls. So if the schools go way up or your city goes way up, the cap that would be proposed wouldn't be effective. Also, too, that's something, to my understanding, would have to be done at the state level. We as county commissioners wouldn't be able to do that. And so, Ron, the biggest thing when I've gone door to door and I've talked to seniors, they have the exact same problem as you do. It goes up by $200 a month, $400 a month. The worst case I've heard of was $600 a month. And it's the property taxes, but it's also the increase in insurance that goes along with that. We do not have a revenue problem here in Johnson County. We have a spending problem. So how are we going to curb the spending? There are at least 4 different ways. There's multiple ways that we can get there. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think about 25 to 33% or so of all revenues for the county come from property taxes. So it doesn't mean we have to completely slash the budget to give you some very real relief. And so 4 different ways that we're going to be able to start attacking some of the spending. One is actually not exactly spending, but there's a lot of vacant property or old buildings that the county owns. I would like to see us get those back on the tax rolls, bringing in more revenue to lower your burden. Also, too, a number of them are expensive. Even here in Gardner, there's a big example of that. So that's number 1, the buildings. Number 2, there are some redundancies between what the city offers and what the county offers. I want to see if there's any cost savings where we say, okay, the city does this better than the county, we're going to let them take over it. One thing that bothers me is over in Overland Park, the city decided, oh, we're going to stop testing pool water. Guess who picked it up, and now who's paying for that? y'all are, because the county decided that it was going to do that. So number 2 is redundancies and services. The number 3 is we need to make sure that we're spending according to your priorities. So we have a citizen survey. It needs to be improved because they want it to be comparable, but there's no question on there about property taxes. It's only like a scale of 1 to 5. There's no any sort of qualitative analysis. So they want it to all be quantitative, but there's no qualitative. And so it's oftentimes the questions that they're not asking. But with that, there are what's the most important thing, being public safety, and it goes all the way down to what's the least important thing. We need to start with the programs that are the least important to residents and do a cost analysis and make sure that we are actually getting our money's worth from it. Is it actually accomplishing it? And so the program needs to either be reformed or removed. And then lastly, we need to look at our incentive policy to make sure that we can't just rubber stamp what comes through. We need to be able to look at and see, okay, in the rare case, the exception to the rule that we're going to offer this, is there actually a tangible benefit to the taxpayers? So it's not going to be perfect, but I think if we go through those 4 things, that's a start, and that will help us get spending under control and lower your property taxes.
So stay there for a moment while we're on property taxes. Another in-person question was related to the state legislator on property taxes. Should they, this said reinstate the property tax lid, but right now there's talk about a 3 or 4% property tax annual increase on your appraisal cap as a constitutional amendment. Do you support that?
Right. Yes, I do. You know, I'm very big on controlling the things within your sphere of influence. And so if you look at who's backing our campaign, the legislators that represent this district, they're supporting our campaign because they know I'll work with them to do what's best for the citizens of this district. And so with that, I will have conversations with them. I will be not just your representative, you can obviously go to them as well, but I will be an advocate for you as to what we want to see at the state level and how it affects the county and the residents here in the district.
Have another in-person, Lynn?
Can I answer that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As I said a while ago about the 3% cap, but I will also say that you need to talk to your state reps as well. They can influence how all that's spent too, and how they can help seniors. We're also talking to them about maybe possibly putting a freeze on property tax.
So the next, she doesn't have another in-person, the next one then, how would you handle another virus or government overreach? That would be Mike's turn next.
Oh, I'd absolutely mask everybody up and put you in your house for years. No. Do your thing. It's between you and God. It's not, I shouldn't sit here and try to be a medical influence and tell you what to do. You know what's right from wrong. You've all been told this for forever. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that we shouldn't mask up. I'm not going to sit here and tell you we should mask up. Do what makes you feel better. If you need a shot, go get a shot. If you need a mask, put a mask on. If you need a bubble, get in it. But leave the rest of us alone. There are people who don't feel that way. And it's not the anti-vaxxers that are going to get us. That's not going to happen. I hear that a lot. Ask me how I felt about COVID. We didn't spend the money that we got from COVID correctly. That's one thing. We're spending it on a migrant shelter that's coming into Lenexa if Lenexa approves it. That's what we're spending our COVID money on. That's what the scare, the fear got us. We got all this money, $62 million for public safety, for the sheriff's department. County commissioners say, okay, that's where it's got to go. If we want the $62 million bucks, we're going to take it. We're going to put it in there. We put it in there. We took it back out, put it in the general fund. We made everybody happy, checked all the boxes. We put it where it was supposed to be, and then we took it back out. Then the sheriff has to run around asking people for money. And then they run around telling everybody he's asking them for money. It's just ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. I'm just a live free kind of guy. You can sit there and if you're afraid of something, take care of it. If you're afraid of, you don't have enough insurance on your house, get insurance on your house. Common sense steps everybody can take, just do it. Whatever makes you feel better. Go, Tony.
So we definitely do not need to do lockdowns. I think it was a mistake last time, and I don't think we would need to do that at any point going forward. In terms of, once again, what are the things we control? I mean, there was a lot of fear and anxiety from this. I mean, folks died from this. And so one thing, last time, my understanding is that the head of our health department wasn't actually in the medical field. And so we were doing regulations blind to a certain extent. And so there's also been a lot of development in technology since 2020. When I worked in research and development, I was on the business side, but we worked in air purification. And so there are some things that the county can do to help if there is any sort of outbreak, whether it's airborne or on surfaces. There are some preventative things that can be done so that it's less likely to spread, and so that the people can feel more comfortable being out in our public spaces. There are some things we can do with that, but no, I don't think we should be restricting the freedoms of individuals for that.
Would you like to stay there? And they said a fun and light, oh, go ahead.
One more thing.
Yeah.
In terms of the phrase was brought up, spending COVID money properly. There's this attitude, if you will, amongst those in government that if we have this money, we've got to find some way to spend it or we'll lose it. I would like to find a way to get that money back to you. And that's what I'm going to do. If we have excess funds that are coming from a federal program, or if there's a way that we can apply it to what's currently in place so that we're not losing it, I'd love to give you a one-time tax break or invest in technology away so that we're reducing our ongoing costs. That's something with my background I'll have the skills and capability to do, and I would love to save you more of your tax dollars.
Stay there for a fun and light-hearted question. It says, do you have any pets at home, and should the county do anything to make Johnson County more friendly to pet owners?
I have 3 wonderful, rambunctious children. We had pets growing up. I love animals. Every time I go and knock on a door, I pet the dog. And I've met a lot of very friendly dogs, a couple dogs that were not as friendly. But if there are particular things that residents would like to see for their pets, I'm always going to listen, even if we don't agree on everything. I know the city of Olathe is putting a lot of money into a shelter. And so these are discussions that we should have. But in terms of any particular plans for pets, I don't have them, but I'm all ears to listen.
Well, 20 acres, guys. So, yeah, we have 3 dogs. One, it's a multi-poo. It's a at night, about midnight, it's a house shoe. I mean, you almost, it's tiny. But we have 2 Labradoodles that my daughter has, and we run wild. We had chickens and ducks and oh my, you know, the whole thing. And then we had, conveniently enough, we called them wild animal food because coyotes and raccoons and everything decided that we didn't need the chickens and the ducks. So, yeah, I think if there's opportunity, we have dog parks at Heritage. Responsible, right? If you're going to be responsible dog owners or pet owners, then absolutely, there's places already in Johnson County for you. Do we need to make more? I don't know. It's kind of like people have cats that they bring in, or iguanas to these dog parks. A long time ago, I was at a dog park and they had an iguana out there and a boa constrictor. These are just her pets, and she just needed them to get air, she said. Okay. So anything that the community feels is a need, not just a want, I'm willing to listen to anything. I'm not set in stone, anti-anything. I think that Johnson County is a unique situation. We have the city and we have the county, or the country. And how are city kids ever going to know what a cow looks like or a horse if they don't come out here, right? Our opponent, she sits behind a gated community. I doubt seriously she even knows where Gardner is, unless her GPS takes her there. And I'm just being funny. I don't know that to be a fact, but, you know, but there's opportunities for everybody. And the one thing that I heard the other day, well, it's not the other day, it's been a few years ago, horses are a luxury. They're not ag anymore. Johnson County, they changed at the state level. So we have horses that are considered property, and they charge accordingly. So just so you guys keep that in mind.
Any in person? We still got on time. I've got a few more here. Why has planning and development in Olathe, Gardner, and DeSoto been mostly, quote, affordable housing when Overland Park is getting pickleball and other entertainment options? Why are we in Western Johnson County getting left out? And Mike's turn.
I get to go first
Yes.
because it's common sense. Overland Park has always thought they were better than Johnson, or in Johnson County, they always thought they were better than everybody else. They always tried to prove it. They tried to take over Olathe. I can't remember what year it was, but they tried to take over the county seat of Olathe. It didn't happen. So Olathe stepped up and has always treated Gardner and Edgerton and DeSoto the same way that they've been treated. Look, if you want something, the only way you're going to ever get it is ask for it. That's just it. And people out here, from what I can tell, they only want it sometimes. They don't want it all the time. They want things pretty much left alone. If they wanted the nightlife, somebody in town would build something and they would come. We've heard this before.
So on this, whoever asked the question, I'd love for you to come find me afterwards because I want to know if there's specific projects you have in mind. Because I'm more familiar with what happens in Olathe, and I've talked to some folks in DeSoto and Gardner. But here's what I know from my experience on the Olathe Planning Commission. Johnson, at least in Olathe, when it comes to affordable housing, we too also had the reputation allegedly of being the armpit of Johnson County. And so a former mayor made the policy decision, even though it wasn't public for political reasons, but they basically threw up as many roadblocks as they could towards having houses under $500,000 or whatnot. There's a huge problem where folks can't find starter homes in our community. If you looked at Zillow at one point, there was maybe 35, 50 homes in Olathe that were under the cost of $500,000 and like 340 that were above the cost of $500,000. So when it comes to development, I know there have been some multifamily projects out in Gardner, and a lot of that is, what is the city or the government's vision, or what's the community's vision? I was told by a former chair of the Board of County Commissioners, this person saw the role of the county commission as being community building. It's about what's the vision, or how do you sell what our community is. For me, Johnson County is a fantastic place to live, work, and raise a family. It's fantastic. I would argue it's one of the best in the world, if not the best. And so are we willing to go out and attract those folks to come here, whether it's on the west side of the tracks in Olathe, folks realizing there's not enough dining options out there, or wanting pickleball courts, or a resident I was out their door the other day and they were asking about trails. Why weren't we prioritizing that? All of this comes back to what we fundamentally have for our campaign, which is put residents first. We don't want to have this idea of what's best for everybody else, because folks know what's best for themselves. And so if we're proactive, we show up, and we're receptive, we truly listen, we will get that feedback from you residents, and we'll be able to sell, whether through our community plans or through outreach, and build together the community that we want. Thank you.
Okay, for the sake of time, so that we have enough time for the one-on-one here, the final two questions, we did address them, but I still want to read them so no one feels left out. What do you know about the proposed highway promised to Panasonic battery plant by the state of Kansas? What is the timeline for this highway? So we did address that at this point. There is no timeline yet. It's still in their study sessions and kind of private meetings that they're not including the residents on. And then the other one, what is your understanding of the intermodal semi-truck traffic on Gardner Road? And so that one, we did address 199th. Gardner Road still has the truck traffic seeping through. So if you would like to address that for a minute, I think that Mr. Bannister would like to hear that. But do you know anything else about the Gardner Road part of the truck traffic that you'd like to mention before closing statements?
I need to look at a map. One of the issues that's been run into is within a mile, I believe, of federal highways, you're not able to regulate truck traffic. And so that's why the signs are placed where they are on 199th. So this is something where I've got a good relationship with several folks in Gardner government, where if this is an ongoing concern, I'd love to talk to them and see if there's anything that the county can do to make sure that folks are staying safe on that road, because that road isn't particularly great for a semi. And so whatever we can do to keep that area safe, I will work together with the folks in local Gardner government to make that happen.
For once, we agree.
Well, we've agreed more than once.
Yeah.
Well, lately. There's a lot that can be done, and I think that we could, first of all, hold some people's feet to the fire. There's been a lot of talk that they were going to do a lot of things, and then they went back on their word. And I think that we need to. I'm not going to address it here. I can talk to you privately, but I think that we need to seriously have another conversation and see where we can get the state involved and get some signs put up the right way and get these people taken care of where they should be.
Okay, Lynn, you want to take a 2.5-minute timer for each one? We will have closing statements, starting with Mike.
He went first.
That's right.
I'm going to make it short and sweet. So, like I said earlier, I've been here since 1977. I've raised hell and I've raised kids. I've done everything I can to give back to the community that gave so much to me. My mother passed away last March, and told me not to do this. People don't appreciate you, she said. I went on and did it anyway. Just because all these areas that touch me are still here the way she left them. And so I'm going to do everything I can, hell or high water, to preserve and help people that need it. We didn't get that help when several years ago we lived out on 143rd and Moonlight, and we didn't get any help at all. Anything we got road-wise or anything else was out of our pocket. Thankfully, the CARS program came along and kind of remedied some of that later after we'd moved. I have 3 daughters here, and I want to leave them something. Not just me for them, but me for all of them. All these kids that are coming up need help. We need to give them a good, solid education. We could do a little bit of that by deflating some of the administrators' paychecks. I love this video thing because they get the chance to see it. It gives a chance to give money back to the people immediately. We need to cut taxes so they can afford to stay here. They don't feel like they need to take their talent and move to Missouri or move away from here. They need to stay here. As a parent, I want my kids to be as close to me as possible. I'm sure some of you do too. Maybe there's one kid let go, Jacob. But I love this town. I love the area we live in, and this is for our forever home. Me and my wife designed our home, bought the property back during the 08 recession, and we built it. We've been here 16 years in the same location. And so it means something, and we're going to make it go. Thanks.
This election is about more than anyone, just one person. It's about what the future of our community is going to look like. I believe we need to put residents first, and with that comes listening. So tonight, I'm very grateful, first of all, that you all came here. I want to thank our hosts, the hosts of the venue as well. But tonight, we talked about spending appropriately on mental health, what that looks like, infrastructure, the budget, spending, taxes, development, making sure that's appropriate, and solar farms. Did I miss anything? I think those were the main topics. If I missed something, please talk to me afterwards. But that's where it all begins, in terms of where do we want our community to go. For me, my number one issue is going to be cutting your property taxes, keeping this area safe, and then what we talked about tonight, the quality of life and the future of our community. You know, contrary to what my opponent put forth, I do think we agree on one thing, is that we both love this community. We've been deeply involved in this community. My wife's head of the Moms Group at our church. I'm involved in DeSoto, Gardner, Edgerton, Chambers of Commerce. Edgerton doesn't have a chamber, excuse me. Olathe, Chamber of Commerce. I'm involved in Rotary. I'm a Knight of Columbus, and I help with monthly food drives at our church. And I donate dozens of hours each month on the Planning Commission to make sure that we have a say in what the future of our community looks like. And that's what I want to do as your county commissioner. I hope to earn your trust and your vote on August 6th. And if you have any questions afterwards, I'd love to spend as long as you'd like here listening to you and answering your questions. So thank you all for coming.
I'd like to thank the candidates for being present tonight, answering the questions, sometimes repeatedly, in order to help the voters know your platform and whether you're a fit to their needs. Again, we'd like to thank our sponsors in the Warren Place venue for this beautiful facility. As you heard tonight, local businesses are important to the community, so please be sure to support local businesses. We'd like to thank you, the voters, for coming out this evening, taking time to educate yourself on the candidates. One thing, again, that was mentioned earlier was how someone else can take over the seat. One of the biggest answers, I believe, is get out and vote in the primaries. A lot of people don't realize the importance of primaries, and so we have a lot of low voter turnout. So let your neighbors know, help them understand the importance. Again, the primary election is a week from tonight. We will now close the public comment podcast. You can stay around and mingle, visit, ask your questions privately. We'll be mindful of the facilities time since we're running a little bit behind here tonight. They do have some literature and some yard signs. You can take that. We ask that you share the link to this on the publiccommentpodcast.com. This will be posted as well as the other interviews they did earlier. So share that with anyone to get the word out so they can help educate themselves as well. So again, thank you and good night. Thanks. Appreciate it. I didn't know I gave you a hard one. So everybody had the right questions.
You asked the point one towards me.
I can't help what comes to me. I get the ones that are given.
You're still mine.
You had a